We have a gag order, which to me is totally unconstitutional. I'm not allowed to talk, but people are allowed to talk about me.
It seems to me that former President Trump is pretty lucky. A judge in a criminal case, when looking at contempt of court, has a, a significant amount of discretion about what the sanctions could be for violating a court order. And those sanctions include imprisonment. It is absolutely common in courthouses around the country for judges, when they use their contempt power, to hold people in contempt of court, and they face jail time. There's a range of sanctions. The court could tell him not to use the internet altogether. The court could tell him that he now needs to wear an ankle monitor. There's all sorts of ways that a judge can try to control the conduct of a person who is facing criminal charges and accused of a crime. And it seems to me that the $10,000 fine is a gift to former President Trump, especially as he's someone who has not even been paying his own legal bills. It appears to me that Trump is the beneficiary of any politics that might be at play. And I think those politics are that he is a wealthy person with a lot of power. And that's why both the prosecutors haven't asked for more serious sanctions like imprisonment or a heftier fine, something that might actually impact his behavior. I don't think there's any malice directed at former President Trump. It appears to me that the judge just really wants to keep the witnesses safe, keep the jurors safe, keep the prosecutor safe, and keep his own family safe. Former President Trump has millions of social media followers, and we have seen already that they have at times taken matters into their own hands. We've seen that on January 6th. We saw that in the threats and racial slurs hurled at the judge in the DC federal case, Judge Chutkan. And so I can only imagine that the judge is just somewhat cowed by the accused person's power. I was a defense attorney for a number of years before I started teaching here at Georgetown. And I can tell you that I'm sure the lawyers are beside themselves. The last thing that I can imagine they would want to deal with while they're in the middle of trial is having to respond to these accusations, which, it appears, I can't prejudge this, but it appears that Trump may have brought on himself based on a lack of self-control. And so I'm sure it's the last thing his lawyers want to be addressing. They'd rather focus on the trial. It also seems that the defense team has angered the judge, which is not where you want to be on the second day of trial. It's rare to see any powerful people held to account in our legal system, and particularly in our criminal legal system. But a former president, I mean, that's just certainly on another level. So what's at stake, I think, is anyone's guess. But for the average person, they could be absolutely looking at having their conditions of release revoked. When a court orders someone to do something pre-trial, that's a condition of their release. And when they violate that order, the court absolutely has the power to revoke those conditions of release, meaning sending the person to jail for the pendency of the case. The other sanction is less direct, which is in the event of a conviction, this judge is the judge that would have to sentence former President Trump. And if he doesn't believe that the person accused of the crime, the person who's been found guilty of the crime, can follow directions and order, that's someone who's no longer a good candidate for probation. That's someone who a judge might think, you know, what's appropriate is jail time or prison time.
Are you worried about being fined for your posts?
But it all starts with Joe Biden. The signals he puts out are so bad. And I can tell you, he's no friend of Israel. We have some of your friends over here. From Japan, many from Japan.
Oh, really? That's too bad.
A very popular man, you know that, right? Well, he's a highly respected man in Japan and beyond, and somebody that I've liked and I've known through our very dear friend, right, Shinzo. We love Shinzo.
Yes.
And who was a great man, by the way. He was a great, great man. But we got to know each other, we like each other, and we'll be talking about Japan and the United States right now, and lots of other things also. But highly respected. It's a great honor to have him.
What is your message to the Japanese people?
To the people of Japan,
Yes.
it's a great country. You're doing very well. Shinzo was a great friend of mine. He was truly a great man and somebody that we all respected and we really loved. And I miss him greatly. But we really admire the people of Japan. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President?
Say it.
Any plans for tomorrow?
What's tomorrow? You tell me. You tell me.
Johnson is visiting with Jewish students at Columbia.
Well, we have a lot of different things, but what's going on with the colleges and where they're closing Columbia now, I mean, it's just crazy. Columbia should gain a little strength, a little courage, and keep their school open. It's crazy because that means the other side wins. When you start closing down colleges and universities, that means the other side. In Japan, they don't know about that. They don't close. They keep it open, they make it work. And the people running Columbia have made a grave mistake. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think the gag order is totally unconstitutional. Can't even allow articles to be put in. As an example, these are articles that were over the last day and a half. They're very good articles. They say the case is a sham and it shouldn't even be tried. It shouldn't have been submitted. And I don't even know if you're allowed to put them in. We have a gag order, which to me is totally unconstitutional. I'm not allowed to talk, but people are allowed to talk about me. So they can talk about me, they can say whatever they want, they can lie, but I'm not allowed to say anything. I just have to sit back and look at why a conflicted judge has ordered me to have a gag order. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like this. I'd love to talk to you people. I'd love to say everything that's on my mind, but I'm restricted because I have a gag order. And I'm not sure that anybody's ever seen anything like this before. And even having to do with articles. Somebody writes an article. If I read every one of these articles incomplete, I read some of it and I look at headlines, all good headlines, and the case is a sham. But I can't read the whole thing. I'd be reading, this is like reading a novel. So I put an article in and then somebody's name is mentioned somewhere deep in the article and I end up in violation of a gag order. I think it's a disgrace. It's totally unconstitutional. I don't believe it's never, not to this extent, ever happened before. I'm not allowed to defend myself, and yet other people are allowed to say whatever they want about me. Very, very unfair. Having to do with the schools and the closings, that's Biden's fault. And by the way, this trial is all Biden. You know, this is all Biden, just in case anybody has any question. And they're keeping me in a courtroom, it's freezing, by the way, in a courtroom all day long, well, he's out campaigning. That's probably an advantage because he can't campaign. Nobody knows what he's doing. He can't put two sentences together. But he's out campaigning. He's out campaigning, and I'm here in a courtroom, sitting here, sitting up as straight as I can all day long, because you know what? It's a very unfair situation. So we're locked up in a courtroom, and this guy's out there campaigning, if you call it a campaign. Every time he opens his mouth, he gets himself into trouble. So that's the story. I have an unconstitutional gag order by a highly conflicted judge that should recuse himself. Very simple. On the schools, should have never happened. What's going on in this country now should have never happened. But of course, the Ukraine war would have never happened. The Israeli attack would have never happened. Inflation would have never happened. We have the worst president in the history of our country, and he's the one that has us in all these different lawsuits. Thank you very much.
Are you looking for Michael Cohen's testimony?
Which one you think? You never know. Won't be able to see anything, but. That was recording you right there. There he is. No, he didn't. He waved.
You know, Caitlin represents millions of women who are enduring unbearable pain and cruelty because of Donald Trump. Sadly, it's pain and cruelty that millions of women in Florida now face. You know, but as I said, as she just said, it's not inevitable. It's not inevitable. We can stop it. When you vote, we can stop it.
With our doctors and our families.
let's be real clear. There's one person responsible for this nightmare, and he's acknowledged and he brags about it, Donald Trump.
We're going to pass the women's health.
It should be a constitutional right in the federal Constitution, a federal right. And it shouldn't matter where in America you live. This isn't about states' rights, it's about women's rights. I mean this. Look, folks, look. Now he's worried the voters will hold him accountable for saying he's responsible for getting Roe v. Wade overturned. Donald Trump is worried voters are going to hold him accountable for the cruelty and chaos he created. Folks, the bad news for Trump is we are going to hold him accountable. We are. He should be held accountable. In fact, the MAGA majority in the House of Representatives has introduced 3 separate. He described the Dobbs decision as a miracle. Maybe it's coming from that Bible he's trying to sell. Whoa. I almost wanted to buy one just to see what the hell's in it. I'll campaign for you or against you, whoever helped the most. Don't think he's making a deal right now with MAGA extremists to ban nationwide abortion in every single state, because he's making it. In fact, the MAGA majority in the House of Representatives has introduced 3 separate bans to ban choice nationwide in every single state. And Oberfeld legalized same-sex marriage. Justice Thomas means it. It'll be all of us who restore those rights for women in America. And when you do that, we'll teach Donald Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women of America. I mean it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Get it done.